What's up, rockers? Welcome to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast. Please hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Leave us your likes and comments. You can do the same on Facebook and also follow us on iTunes and Spotify. Today, we are going to have a wide-ranging discussion on the mighty Deep Purple. Not only one of the founding bands of the heavy metal genre, one of the most influential bands of the genre, but also a band that produced numerous offshoots that also went on to be highly influential. Of course, we're talking about Whitesnake, Rainbow, Black Sabbath, and many others that we're going to get into today. We'll get to all that, the far-reaching branches of the Deep Purple family tree, here in just a bit. But first, I'm Metal Dave Glessner. Here's my co-host, Jason McMaster. What's going on, Jason?
How are you, man?
I'm doing all right, dude. You?
Is this our 27th episode?
It is. Isn't that amazing?
27? I feel like we started this just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, we're already up to 27. We're cranking them out, and our producer Jared is keeping that whip cracking, and the listeners seem to enjoy it, and there's, some of them are keeping up with it at a fanatical pace, and we love it.
So realize, what is our average length of these episodes? Hour and a half?
Yeah, I think they started off about an hour. I think they've gone to about an hour and a half is probably average about now. Yeah.
So we're looking at 90 minutes times 27 minimum.
I don't do math, man.
Yeah,
but, okay.
Me neither. But that's a whole lot of jibber jabber.
Yeah. Well, that's why we started this, because there's no shortage of jibber jabber when you put me and you together.
Well, that's true. No one even has to be around. Like if no one even listened or watched this YouTube, or no one even listened on, Crapify or whatever, dude, you and I would still be having a good time talking about useless information that's on the back of record covers.
Yeah, this is a normal phone conversation for us.
True.
So, yeah.
True.
Just put a camera in front of us and let her rip.
Yeah, so it's kind of like everybody else who is kind of like, throwing a rope and is holding on for dear life. They're just flies on the walls of our existence.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
And fortunately, a lot of them are enjoying it. So thank you.
Well, no, that's what, whenever I hear about things that happened in the rock and roll world, and I'm hearing about it, it's usually on social media. I hear about so-and-so did a song with da-da-da-da-da, and hey, I sure would like to talk about music. I see two people, chatting or something. I usually chime in and go, hey, can I just be a fly on the wall for that? So whatever scenario that whole thing works. No, I wanted to bring that up. I think that's kind of cool and worthy of mention that, when we started this thing, Jared was kind of like, we did one or two, and it could have even been before we did even one. He was like, so yeah, you got one or two. Yeah. Think 100 episodes. Don't think like one or two. Man, that was fun. That's cool. All right, we're done. No, think like 100 episodes.
Yeah. It was a pretty daunting proposition when I first heard it, but the pace we're going, 100 seems like it's on the horizon already.
A couple more weeks, we'll be up to 300, man.
Yeah.
We got nothing. Obviously, we have nothing better to do, which is totally not true. I'm busier now than, it's not Jared's fault, but I'm busier now than I've ever been. It's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to mention something. I got an email the other day from Tim Mosier from Junkyard, and it was my birthday recently, and sort of as a birthday gift, I suppose, he sent me a message on Facebook, and he said, check your email. I sent you a present. I got around to my email. I opened it up, and it was 2 brand new Junkyard tracks that he shared with me, and he swore me to secrecy. I'm not allowed to share them with anybody, because apparently I'm the only one outside of the inner circle that's even heard at least one of them. One of the tracks they played out live, but I think I'm the first to have heard the recorded versions of their new songs. And so the update on that is Junkyard is hard at work on a new album. They're going to continue to work with Acetate Records, which is the label they've been on for their past couple of releases. And the new tracks, one of them is called Last of a Dying Breed, and the other one is called Lifer, and which, by the way, was inspired, at least in title, by you, my co-host. I don't know if you recall, but we were backstage with Junkyard about a year and a half ago when you recorded that Evil in the Queue album with Broken Teeth, and they were telling us that they had this song, and they were looking for a title or a theme or something, and they came up with Lifer, and Tim stood right there and told us that it was inspired by you, Jason McMaster, because you are a rock and roll lifer. So there you go.
So let me get this straight. Is it true that you're saying that I influenced Junkyard to title up this song called Lifer?
I didn't say it. Tim said it, and you were standing right there when he said it.
He said that he got that title from me.
Yeah, you inspired the title. You didn't give him the title. You inspired the title.
Well, I think that on one of my Facebook handles, it just says, instead of like, yeah, I was in all these cool bands and I'm working with it just says Lifer.
Yeah, it's very fitting, and the tracks sounded great. If anyone has the last couple of Junkyard releases, and you should, these two tracks pick up right along where that type of sound was coming from, which is an extension of their original sound. That's the beauty of Junkyard. They don't stray too far from what they do. So if you're a Junkyard fan, you're going to like them. They're going to release these two tracks on a 7-inch first, and then sort of as a teaser. And I'm not sure exactly when that's coming out, but before the end of the year, I think. And the entire album will come out towards the end of the year. And Junkyard is looking forward to getting back on stage. They have some gigs lined up beginning in August, and I think they've got some additional ones that go towards the end of the calendar year. And we'll see how this COVID thing goes. But it looks like they're picking up momentum in the Junkyard camp, and the first two tracks that I've heard that are new are really good, and people that are fans are going to dig it.
Right now, Broken Teeth is supposed to do some shows with them in December in Texas, but
they told me that, but I didn't want to let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah, we have confirmed at least one of them, but we don't have any dates yet. So
yeah.
So that'll be fun.
The wheels are starting to turn.
And I've got a few. I'm excited about it, but I'm also in fear of just being totally out of shape, for obvious reasons, right?
Yeah.
I have some dates on the calendar. It's good.
I've seen them, and I think some of our listeners have as well. They're getting a lot of comments and a lot of finally, people are excited, not just for you, but for Junkyard and every other band. It's been a long time since we've all seen live music, and we're ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, I just hope everyone stays safe and let this be a lesson to everybody,
Yeah. Let's move into our main topic. It's going to be a long one today, so let's get started. Today, we are talking about Deep Purple, and not just talking about Deep Purple, but maybe more importantly, talking about the far-reaching influence that the band has. And obviously, Deep Purple, one of the cornerstone bands of the hard rock heavy metal genre, every bit as important as Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath. But besides the music they gave us as Deep Purple, they also are responsible for a number of offshoots, great bands that went on to huge things and were influential in their own right. We're talking, of course, the elephants in the room would be Whitesnake, Rainbow, Black Sabbath, but there's also a lot of other bands that come from the Deep Purple ecosystem, and we're going to get into that today.
Yeah, let me jump in, please, Dave, if you don't mind.
Yeah, get started.
I just want to I don't want this to turn into the Pastor McMaster sermon, but because you guys know me and you know that I could go a long time. So listen, I think that this show idea ultimately spawns from how many times I've just like realized driving down the road, thinking about a song or a guitar player or an artist or a bass player, or looking through my collection of music or whatever. The veins and branches and leaves and all lead back to Deep Purple. Now, I believe there is this like wall poster that you can purchase. It might be out of print, but I've seen it online where it just looks like a smear of ink on a poster, because the words are and names and band names and band members and it are so dense, and it's a Deep Purple family tree poster.
Yeah.
That I've always wanted to get. It is like an elder scroll. It is like, it should be like there needs to be some kind of Bible.
Yeah.
Now, we're not going to be able to get to all of them. That's how dense this thing is going to be.
Right.
But I like to, and we've talked about this, and I've even called it a game, where I would say, okay, tell me how this is related to Deep Purple, and I say a name of a musician. Okay, yeah. Let's try it. Let's just try it before we even start rolling on whatever it is we're going to do. This is the idea, and this is kind of how deep the gene pool goes. And this is not even like to a leaf that's on a branch 10 miles that way. This is I'm still saying this is pretty close to the trunk.
Yeah.
If I say the name, just tell me as many. So how does this person connect to Deep Purple? It should be fairly easy when I say a name, Cozy Powell.
Cozy Powell, one of the great drummers in hard rock and heavy metal. Well, let's see. He was in Rainbow. I know that. And Rainbow, the connection obviously is Richie Blackmore.
Right.
But Cozy also went on to play drums for a time in Whitesnake.
Yes.
Also has a Deep Purple.
Saw him on the Slide It In tour with Whitesnake.
Yeah, I saw that tour as well. And the connection there, of course, is David Coverdale, who was also in Deep Purple. Mm-hmm. Cozy.
So you just went from Rainbow to Deep Purple through Whitesnake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Cozy was in Whitesnake with the singer who used to be in Deep Purple, although Cozy was in Rainbow and David Coverdale was not. We're not done with Cozy. Keep going with Cozy.
Right. See, I'm going to need a roadmap here in a minute, but
no, you're good. I just connected the dots, but let's keep going with Cozy because it's badass.
Cozy also played with the Michael Schenker group.
Yes.
And the connection there would be Graham Bonnet, who was also at one time.
Gary Barden, actually.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Cozy played when Barden was the vocalist. That's right.
That's right. Graham Bonnet, who was in Rainbow, replaced Dio. See where this is going? You see how the game has begun? Yeah. I just broke off a twig and threw it over there. And you're like, whoa, I can't even lift this giant piece of firewood,
Yeah.
I just do a twig over there. So yes, Cozy was in the early inceptions of on the early releases of MSG.
Right. So Cozy Powell, of course, he's played on a number of landmark records. I mean, he played on Rising. Rainbow Rising, which many people consider to be one of the ultimate heavy metal albums of all time. So that alone puts him in the history books. But of course, his resume is much broader than that. But okay,
So hold on. So the perfect example, excellent work, Dave. So we haven't even. if you were to like just make a show or have a 30-minute or an hour conversation, there you go, about Cozy, the
Yeah.
life and death of Cozy Powell and everything that he did in between, you could probably fill up an hour.
Oh, sure.
And he's just the drummer. Not
Yeah.
that I'm dogging drummer, but he was the drummer that connected a lot of people to a lot of things.
Yeah.
And we only mentioned half of the projects and bands that he was part of, that he
Right.
was instrumental in getting off the ground, so to speak.
Right. And that's how far-reaching the topic of Deep Purple is when you start stretching it out like that. So let me take a shot. Let me go with Jimmy Bain. Who's Jimmy Bain, and what are his connections to Deep Purple?
Jimmy Bain was in Rainbow when Dio was in Rainbow.
Yes.
Is that correct?
He was on the Rising album. Yes.
And
He may have been on. Was he on Long Live Rock and Roll?
I don't know.
I don't know about that one.
I don't have those facts, but the connection here is that Jimmy Bain didn't only play bass with Ronnie James Dio when Dio quit or left Rainbow to join Black Sabbath. Jimmy Bain probably was still in Rainbow. That's a question.
I don't know because I think
So,
Roger Glover came back at some point.
oh, right. Okay, right. I think that you're right. So Roger Glover, who produced Judas Priest Sin After Sin, there we go. See, the spokes and the branches keep going. Anyway, the point. Jimmy Bain was doing something, but I don't know what. There's much bigger nerds out there that know Deep Purple better than you and I do all day long, and we're not trying to champion over any Deep Purple historian at all. Your archive is not our archive in brain power, so
Right.
we're just going to get that off. We will wear our dum dum on our sleeve all day here. We're just nerding out on the idea of how awesome it is that Deep Purple is this sort of like Genesis, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Dio joins Black Sabbath, which
Right.
brings Black Sabbath into the gene pool immediately.
Yes.
They were standing there the whole time anyway, but so Jimmy Bain's got to be doing something. I just don't know. Yeah.
Jimmy Bain was doing one of the bands he was doing was a band called Wild Horses, which was with Brian Robertson from Thin Lizzy. He was busy in the meantime between. Okay, so
until Dio calls him going, "Hey, I'm not doing Sabbath anymore. I'm going solo, and you're going to be my bass player."
Boom, he's
freaking
back.
Awesome. Yeah, him and Dio are together. Dio and Bain ride again.
Yeah.
In Dio's, and it was Holy Diver, and it was a kind of a new episode by that point. Okay, so let me ask you this, Dave, and this is a no-brainer. So Dio goes solo, so he leaves Black Sabbath. What happens to Black Sabbath right then and there?
Yeah, they hire Ian Gillan, who used to sing for Deep Purple.
Well, he never really. Well, I guess he left. He went solo and then joined Sabbath for a record and then went solo again, I think. But he was always still in and out of Deep Purple.
Yeah, Ian Gillan, one of the great metal vocalists of all time. Obviously, he's certainly best known for the catalog he did with Deep Purple. But yeah, a few years later, he's fronting Black Sabbath when Dio departed. So then you've got Ian Gillan back in the gene pool once again, this time with Black Sabbath. So
there has to be some kind of running joke between the Purple and the Sabbath camp, between at least a couple of members, about how they're just trading singers, and it's like they're probably rolling their eyes chuckling at the pub. but it's just part of how cool I think that in this entire family is related. Yeah.
Well, it's amazing how many times, like you said, you start flipping through your collection, you hear a song on the radio, you start thinking about an individual player, and it really is pretty amazing how often the common denominator turns out to be Deep Purple. So, in doing a little research for this episode, I was looking at the history of Deep Purple, and they formed in '68, and the original singer was a guy named Rod Evans. And really, probably the only song that most people will know with him singing is "Hush," which is a staple on classic rock radio. And by the way, it was a cover tune.
Mm-hmm. Joe South.
Yeah. And so they did 3 albums, I think, with Rod Evans. Then comes Ian Gillan, and Ian Gillan, I guess you could say, is probably the classic years. The albums are In Rock, Made in Japan, Fireball, Machine Head, of course. So a body of work with Ian Gillan that's, geez, let's face it, it's every bit as important as the Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath catalogs. And then
they had another. I want to just interrupt there. I did some research as well. I mean, I could riff all day about how, there's ways that the Shankers from the Scorpions and UFO are all related, and how everyone's played with everybody else and written songs for anyway. In the U.S., it was in the U.S. only that Hush was a single, that charted.
Oh.
And also, like the next year, that was 68. Between 68 and 70, it was Hush, which is a cover, and another cover that only charted in U.S. and Canada, didn't really do anything in the U.K. Was the Neil Diamond song "Kentucky Woman."
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's kind of a trip. Now listen, between 74 and 76, Coverdale and Glenn Hughes were doing basic vocal duty for Deep Purple. When you buy a Greatest Hits Deep Purple album, by the way, we have affiliate links in our description of our show now that you can go down there and click on these and find information for the record, or hell, even buy the record if you want. But the point here is that between 74 and 76, Coverdale and Glenn Hughes, when you buy a Deep Purple, man, I need to get me some Deep Purple. I want to buy a Greatest Hits album, is the way to go. And I have a Greatest Hits CD that I listen to all the time when I just need some Deep Purple, because it's got all the kick-ass shit on it.
Right.
It's got a different singer like every other song.
Yeah.
Because the band has been around as long as, or longer than the Rolling Stones.
They've been around for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And by the way, why is Glenn Hughes never mentioned in the conversation of greatest rock singers of all time?
Yeah, he's amazing.
My God, that guy's vocals are just insane, man.
What was that group that he had? Black Country Communion?
Yeah.
Did you ever hear that?
I didn't hear any of the music. I know he had, that was with John Bonham's son. And John Bonham's kid was playing drums, Jason Bonham.
Yeah, okay.
That right?
Joe Bonamassa, the blues guy, wasn't he in that band?
I think so. And
that's a pretty serious band.
Yeah. And I'm going to jump ahead since we're on the subject of Glenn Hughes, because I have a couple. I wanted to bring up a couple what would probably be considered footnotes in this conversation, since there's so many giants in this conversation. The Dios and the Coverdales, and the Ritchie Blackmores and such. But since we're talking about Glenn Hughes, did you ever hear the album by the Hughes Thrall Band?
I knew you were going there. I didn't want to interrupt. So Pat Thrall played guitar for a long time with Pat Travers.
Correct.
And I want to say Mars Cowling, the bassist, during that era of quite a few catalog of records with the Pat Travers Band. I want to say he was doing some stuff with Glenn Hughes too. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but so anyway, Hughes Thrall, I remember seeing a video or hearing a song. Yep. I don't even know what years that would have been falling into.
They did one album. It was self-titled. It came out in 1982.
Okay.
It was just called Hughes Thrall, and it was the Hughes Thrall Band.
For those of you who don't know, first off, Pat Travers, we could do a whole show on Pat Travers.
Yeah.
He's one of those San Antonio alumni guys too. You know what I mean? Joe Anthony and the whole he got a lot of love in South Texas on 99.5 KISS.
Originally from Canada. That might be the Canadian.
From Canada, but everybody there's a Canadian bands. There we go again. We could do a part two. We could do two episodes of every episode we've done here, because that's the big nerd that you and I are. But Pat Travers is this incredible sort of blues hard rock guitar player.
Yeah.
Who always had these kick-ass players with him, even always wasn't afraid to have somebody just as kick-ass or more kick-ass standing right next to him, trading solos back and forth all night long on tour, on vinyl, yada yada. So it doesn't shock me at all that Pat Thrall made a record with Glenn Hughes from Deep Purple.
Yeah, I remember it. Again, growing up in San Antonio like I did, I'm going to bring up the great Joe Anthony many, many times during this podcast on multiple episodes, because he was a DJ that probably helped turn San Antonio into the heavy metal capital of the world, as it was known at one point. And I want to say that he was playing Hughes Thrall because of the pedigree of the band. He knew very well who Glenn Hughes and Pat Thrall were. And so he was playing, they had a single called The Look in Your Eye. And there was a video for it on MTV. And I remember hearing the song on the radio and thinking, this is a catchy tune. It was a little more pop oriented than what you might expect from Pat Thrall and Glenn Hughes, but a great song nonetheless. And another interesting footnote about that album, an unknown Frankie Banali played drums on a couple tracks on the Hughes Thrall record.
Wow. So this is 82, you say?
82, yes.
So Frankie Banali from Quiet Riot plays all the drums, or just some
First of all, he hasn't played metal. He hasn't done Metal Health yet, so he's still unknown, basically.
When did Metal Health come out?
A year later, in '83.
Okay.
So Frankie is pretty unknown, at least nationwide, at this time. He only played on 2 tracks on the album, but I thought it was interesting.
Is Frankie original Quiet Riot drummer?
No.
Okay. All right.
No, he's not. He joined on the Metal Health record. Of course, Quiet Riot had the 2 Japanese albums that came out prior to Metal Health. And I always get the rhythm section mixed up. It was Drew Forsythe and Kelly Garney, I want to say. Okay. And off the top of my head, I can't tell you which guy is the bass player and which is the drummer. But to answer your question, no, Frankie Banali is not the original drummer in Quiet Riot. But he did propel them to the top of the charts with Metal Health. And
right. And Rudy Sarzo is not the original bass player for Quiet Riot.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So to finish out, not to make it about Quiet Riot, but they're players in here. They're already players in here. Multiple people. Randy, Ozzy, Sabbath, Ian Gillan, Born Again, keep going, right? So, okay, so, and then Rudy Sarzo, who's not original Quiet Riot, was not only touring bassist for Ozzy Osbourne, but he was in Whitesnake.
Yeah, here we go.
This is the reason we're having this show.
Yeah,
okay. all related to Big Mama Bear, Deep Purple.
Yeah, so, it all comes back around.
There's a method to all of this madness. So okay, So that automatically even connects, even though they were never in. They were in a band with someone who was in a band who was in a band all the way back to Deep Purple.
Yeah.
So, and I wasn't even trying to stutter. The whole thing is just it's like
This
domino.
is going to be a stutter fest, you know.
Yeah, it's a domino effect. It's the whole thing. So, okay, very interesting that Hughes Thrall, couple songs, Frankie Banali, pre-Quiet Riot, bursting out on the scene. At that time, it was Carlos Cafazzo, and because Randy was with Ozzy,
right,
and Sarzo was with Ozzy,
right.
So I think that Sarzo was only in Quiet Riot for a minute.
Hey, yeah, Sarzo was in Quiet Riot for the Mental Health record. He only played, from what I've read, he only played on about half of it, because Chuck Wright,
that's right,
played on a number of the songs. But again, to not make it about Quiet Riot, but since you bring up Rudy Sarzo and you connected him to Ozzy, which of course is accurate. So check this out. So who replaced Randy Rhoads when he died before Brad Gillis?
Hold on. Before Brad Gillis,
yes.
Just Speak of the Devil live album,
just before,
which is a monster live record.
Right. There was a guy that played a few dates with Ozzy in Randy Rhoads' spot.
Am I going to say, oh God, Bernie Torme?
You are correct. And where did he come from?
Rainbow?
Ian Gillan's band.
Ian Gillan's band. That's right. In Gillan. It was just called Gillan, right?
Yeah.
Ching ching. Hold them up.
There we
ching,
go
ching.
again, you know?
Yeah. Ching ching ching.
Ching 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 ching. Yeah. And on the subject of Gillan, the band Gillan, he also gave us Yannick Gears, who's been the third guitar player in Iron Maiden for a number of years.
Hold on a second. I didn't even know that. So Yannick was where?
And he was in Gillan for a little while. He actually replaced Bernie Torme in Gillan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wasn't Bernie Torme from Gillan, just to be clear, so everyone can keep putting this together, because you just corrected me on that. Okay, so Gillan guitar player, Bernie Torme. I feel like Bernie Torme was, for a very short time, in not Widowmaker, but Desperado with Clive Burr and Dee Snider.
You are correct. Yes.
Ass. That kicks ass. So Dee Snider is on the Deep Purple tree.
Yeah. And
Kevin Bacon style.
This is crazy. Yeah. So since we're talking about,
well, it's only as crazy as we let it be crazy. I mean, this is not really. Let's take just another breath of air here. Let's catch our breath for a minute, because we're about to nerd out plenty more.
I thought we did that 20 minutes ago.
Yeah. Well, let's take another breath, because it really is amazing what it is we're doing. We could, and we probably will, but this is technically not an episode of Talk Louder about Deep Purple.
No, it's about
elaborate.
The family tree of Deep Purple. It's basically, it's like I said earlier, it's amazing how many times the common denominator comes back to Deep Purple. And so, yeah, we're not going to go album by album through the Deep Purple catalog and discuss the greatness of Deep Purple, although we could, because they're certainly worth a show. And Lord knows we wouldn't have. Lord, did you hear that? No pun intended.
Yeah, we need to talk about John Lord. Sure. He's the original member.
Yeah. Before we get away from Bernie Torme, though, one more little note about Bernie, and then we'll move on to John Lord. But Bernie also, at one time, somewhere in all this mix, had a band, a self-named band just called Torme. And
I remember that. In if you don't remember, I used to be a worshiper of Kerrang magazine, and I would find this kind of stuff all the time. And I'd read these little small squared, snippets in the bottom of corner of a page somewhere, and I'd read. Yeah.
yeah. So then, do you know who he had as a singer? This is Bernie Torme again. When he had his self-titled band Torme, he had a singer,
I don't recall.
Bill Lewis.
Oh.
Yeah.
And what did I say in a text message to you the other day? Everybody knows Phil Lewis.
Everybody knows Phil Lewis.
Everybody knows Phil Lewis. He's legend.
He is. There you go.
Legend.
Yeah.
So hold on a second. Did we just put Phil Lewis on the tree?
I think we put him on the Deep Purple tree. He's out. He's pretty far out there, but he's on the tree. Yeah.
Boom, Daddy-O. That's serious. Well, we need to make sure that he knows that his name came up in an episode about Deep Purple, and he would probably be like, "Hey, mate, how did that happen?" And I'd be like, "Dude, you were in Torme for a minute.
Brilliant.
Put it together." Yeah. Okay. Okay, so
let's go back to John Lord.
Doesn't that put, I'm going to nerd for a second. Doesn't that put Def Leppard on the Deep Purple tree?
Oh, God.
Phil Collin.
By way of Girl. I see where you're
Girl,
going.
Phil Collin, Def Leppard, Phil Collin, Phil Lewis, Torme. Yeah.
That's at the end of a branch I can't quite see the end of,
it's pretty far out there over. It's not even over land anymore. It's over the Atlantic or something.
Yeah. So John Lord, we need to mention John Lord. I mean, holy smokes, one of the great keyboard players in hard rock, heavy metal, and just, I mean, I bet if that guy sat down at a piano in a hotel bar, he'd just blow your mind. He made his bones in the hard rock, heavy metal world, but strikes me as a guy who might have been classically trained.
He's classically trained. I have made sure to do a little bit of page flipping on him.
Yeah.
And what I want to bring up is, and you kind of said it a little bit. Let me elaborate. You said he's kind of garnered his feathers by playing in hard rock bands.
Yeah.
Or metal. You even said heavy metal. And let me elaborate on that. The idea of there's this 5-piece band, but there's not 2 guitar players like a Judas Priest or something, right? There's one guitar player, but then you hear this, well, it's not a bass guitar and it's not a guitar. What the hell is that? Well, what that is that's like a Hammond B3 with John Lord just ripping on it through a Marshall stack with some gain on it, with some crisp, what I mean? He's playing this like church organ tone through a Marshall stack, and inadvertently created this super heavy undertow tone that's somewhere between a bass guitar and a lead guitar, or power chords, which sound like you're talking about heavy metal. Yeah. Now, that's almost like throw in like an 8-string bass that you play chords on, a bass that you play chords on with a pick. A 6-string guitar. This is a blender, by the way. An organ, a Leslie speaker, which is a spinning speaker that usually has a lot of gain on it that you hear. It's like an effect for keyboards. Yeah. Before they realized that you could actually use guitar effects like wah-wah and stuff like that on an electric piano or keyboard, because you can. Pre-world of like maybe John Lord was around right when, I'm just going to say, synthesizers or Moog keyboard type stuff was starting to happen, which is more of the late 70s, 80s thing. John Lord, we're talking late 60s.
Yeah.
And he's already doing this crazy, heavy, neoclassical turning into what would be known as a heavy metal type of a thing with Richie Blackmore standing right next to him.
Right.
And they're doing harmonies together.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
he's on keyboard and guitar, which later on, of course, Yngwie Malmsteen, who's definitely on the tree, by way of many, many different ways. Joe Lynn Turner was on a series of his records. Anyway, Jens Johansson, who's actually in a current version of Deep Purple, I believe. Isn't Jens Johansson in the current version of Deep Purple?
I'm not sure. All I know is that Deep Purple, to this day, just released a brand new album, so they're still at it.
I think it's Jens from Yngwie on. Anyway, Jens and Anders Johansson have been the key. Jens on keys and Anders on drums. They were in and out of Yngwie records since the beginning. Rising Force. They're Rising Force. They were brothers. They had a band called Silver Mountain when they were kids, which was keys, and it was heavy metal, but it was symphonic before that was even a term. So anyway, so where was I?
We were talking about John Lord.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to add to your point about John Lord. I mean, it's amazing the way he's chasing Blackmore on the solo to Highway Star. I mean, that is insane. You know, you've got one of the greatest hard rock / metal neoclassical guitarists ever in Richie Blackmore.
I want to bring up Yngwie one more time because Jens and Yngwie did that.
Yeah.
Jens is going on the keyboards just like in Highway Star, and Yngwie, of course, is
right. But
to be clear, a lot of people think Yngwie is basically stealing a Blackmore kind of a thing all the time. And yes, he is, but he's also influenced by keyboard players who played like that. Classical piano players.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think his claim to it is his sister had these classical piano players that were going kind of stuff, and he wanted to learn how to do that on guitar. Okay, back to where you were.
Yeah, you could argue that guys like Blackmore and certainly Yngwie were structuring their guitar playing after piano and keyboards. They weren't idolizing other guitar heroes. I mean, they were to a degree, but you know, you don't often think of landmark guitar players as being influenced by classical music, which is dominated by, you know, keys and that sort of thing. You think of classical guitar players growing up on previous guitar players, you know, a guitar player from another generation. And certainly, you know, Blackmore and definitely Yngwie, you know, had their idols, their guitar heroes, but especially those European type guitar players, because classical music is such a part of the fabric of the culture of European countries. Yeah, those guys grew up mimicking keyboard players on their guitar rather than mimicking the previous generation's guitar hero. But anyway, I always thought it was fascinating because, you know, and again, keyboards and piano in some circles aren't considered heavy and they're not considered rock. And, you know, people bitch and moan about keyboards, blah, blah, blah. But John Lord was a monster and very responsible for the overall sound of Deep Purple. And the fact that he could chase someone as lickety split as Richie Blackmore and complement him so well as almost a second, you know, guitar player. I mean, it's almost like they were, you know, when you think of Glenn Tipton and K.K. Downing or Dave Murray and Adrian Smith, or Brian Robertson and Scott Gorham, these two guitar players who can trade off these ripping lead guitars. Well, in Deep Purple, you had Richie Blackmore, and that second ripping lead guitar player was John Lord on keyboards. You know?
That's right. Well,
yeah.
John Lord died in 2012, but I think Don Airey.
I was going to bring him up.
jumped in as early as I'm looking at notes here, as early as 2001. So John Lord must have been, yeah, he kind of stepped out in 2002. So that
Yeah.
makes sense that Don Airey kind of just carried the baton.
And if I'm not mistaken, Don Airey is in the current version of Deep Purple to this day.
He is, and Don Airey. It should be mentioned that this brings up Black Sabbath. He's played with Dio. Talking Don Airey, he's played with Dio. He's played with Sabbath.
Ozzy.
Yeah. He has. I think that might even be him on Mr. Crowley.
Yeah, he's definitely on. Yeah, that's him on Mr. Crowley. He did the first two Ozzy records.
Yeah.
And he toured with Ozzy. Most hard rock heavy metal fans, whether you know his name or not, you're familiar with his work because he was with Ozzy during that period of Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman.
Let's hover over this Ozzy moment for a second. So the rhythm section is Bob Daisley and Lee Kerslake. So I think Lee Kerslake, I want to say, was in Uriah Heep for a moment.
Yes, not a moment. He was in Uriah Heep for a long time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then Bob Daisley was in Rainbow for a minute.
For a minute, yes.
Okay. So there we go. More connections. Now, Don Airey, John Lord. Let's go back to the Ozzy moment. I wanted to just take a moment and think about that intro for Mr. Crowley. What would that song be without that intro?
That intro sets.
It would just start with Mr. Crowley. It wouldn't have the build that builds that up so Ozzy can introduce Mr. Crowley.
Yeah,
now how heavy metal is that, and how neoclassical is that, and how John Lord of him.
Yeah.
To do that and go, well, how, man, that's making keyboards sound like they belong in heavy metal.
Right.
Okay.
And it's because I think it works so well because, his playing is perfect for the song. It lends it a very cathedral sort of goth sort of element. And then of course, then the song, the subject matters, Aleister Crowley, which is, all about Satanism and that sort of thing. So it really complements the song, not just musically, but topically as far as the lyrics or whatever. And you're right, that song benefits tremendously from that creepy, sort of eerie keyboard intro that sets it all up.
Yeah, it's it makes you think of the Phantom of the Opera theme. It makes you think of a lot of different things. But you nailed it. It's definitely cathedral because it sounds like the old church pipe organ stuff, which is Phantom of the Opera. That's the old theater pipe organ thing, where they built those my terminology is terrible, but they built them into the wall of the building.
Yeah.
I
want to bring up another guy here. Another guy that's probably, I hate to use the word footnote because I don't want to diminish his significance, but in the grand scheme of the conversation, certainly one of the lesser known dudes, and that is Tony Carey. Do you remember Tony?
Yes.
Carey?
Yeah.
Okay. So where does he factor into this conversation? Where's his starting point? And we'll go from there. Do you know where,
I don't know what version. Let's see. I've got some notes here. I can look.
I'll help you out.
Yeah, please, because I'm not seeing him in my notes here.
Tony Carey is the keyboard player on Rainbow Rising.
Okay.
So he is.
Yeah, I'm looking in my purple notes, and he's over in my rainbow notes.
He's in the rainbow. Yeah. So again, Rising, often cited as one of the greatest heavy metal albums of all time. He is on that record. And then I was never aware of that, because that album came out in '76, and I wasn't aware of who was the keyboard player in Rainbow at that time.
Well, if he's not standing up front, you know, you know,
It,
doing, playing a solo or singing, it's hard. Sometimes
right.
it's hard to look back there.
Rainbow was not on my radar in 1976 the way Kiss was. So
That's
I
not
was
your fault. Don't
right.
don't bum out. That's not your fault.
But I want to say that in a band like Rainbow, especially on the Rising album, you're going to be overshadowed by Ronnie James Dio and Richie Blackmore. But anyway, Tony Carey played keyboards on Rising, but he came onto my radar.
When he was in the band, who was the singer for Rainbow?
Dio.
Okay, all
Yeah,
right.
he did the Rising record.
And then Tony Carey had some hits on MTV as just Tony Carey, didn't he?
Exactly, and that's where I was going with all
There
this.
was one song that was kind of cool.
I was a sucker for his solo stuff, and at the time that it came out, I wasn't even aware that that's the guy who was the keyboard player in Rainbow at one time. So we're talking now. We're talking about the early '80s,
Right.
and he had some stuff on the radio and MTV, and my favorite song we're talking a period between '82 and '84, maybe '85. And my favorite song was a song called Fine Fine Day. And there was a video for it. And the storyline was basically about a family reunion that the guest of honor was, I guess this long lost uncle who was in the mob. And he was caught up in gangster activity and all this stuff and went to prison for a long time. And then he gets out. And the day that he gets out, they have a big family reunion. It's a fine, fine day for a reunion. And then the guy gets gunned down by one of his rival mob. It's like a mob hit from, many years ago. They don't forget, right? And they
Right.
come back and get the guy. But I always loved that song. Um, and the video is kind of cool, in an early '80s MTV kind of somewhat cheesy way, but not too bad. But yeah, Tony Carey had "It's a Fine Fine Day." He had another song called "I Won't Be Home Tonight," which was another
That's the
radio
song that I was thinking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he had another hit. There was a contractual obligation that I think prevented him from releasing it as Tony Carey, or else he just wanted to release it as sort of a side project. And the band was called, or the name of the artist, whatever you want to call it. It was under the name Planet P, and the song was it was called "Why Me." And it was sort of loosely based on David Bowie's Space Oddity, because it was about an astronaut, or the video featured all this imagery of space and Tony Carey as an astronaut. I don't know. It was probably pretty far fetched. But anyway, there's the keyboard player from Rainbow, had three pretty big hits. They weren't massive hits, but they were definitely, on radio and on MTV in the early '80s. And I liked every one of them. So I thought he was great. I didn't want to not mention Tony Carey in this conversation.
Yeah. So I just got over here to my Rainbow notes, and yeah, Jens Johansson is in a version of Rainbow.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, it just goes and goes and goes. I gotta say that when you think about the singers that were in Rainbow,
Yeah.
let's talk about that just for a moment. So Tony Carey, Dio is standing right next to him, right?
Yep.
Okay. Long Live Rock and Roll, Rising, right?
On the Silver Mountain.
Right.
Yeah.
That's huge. Those are anthems.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
are on truck stop CDs of classic rock right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of them, probably all three of those songs.
Yeah.
So, okay, so Dio joins Black Sabbath. Who's the singer right after that?
For Rainbow,
Yes.
Graham Bonnet.
Okay, so Graham Bonnet. Graham Bonnet, there's some hits.
Oh yeah.
Since You've Been Gone.
Surrender. No, that's Jolyn Turner.
Since you, well, we're going to get to him. Since You've Been Gone, I think was probably the biggest one.
Yeah.
And there's another one that I don't know who wrote it, and it's not even in my notes right now. But it's bumming me out because I don't.
Got it.
All Night Long.
All Night Long. Yep.
Yep. Is that a cover?
No, I think Since You've Been Gone is a cover.
Oh, okay. I'm getting.
You got it backwards. Yeah. Since You've Been Gone is, I believe, a Russ Ballard song.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And
it's on a record called Down to Earth.
Yeah. It's the only album I believe that Bonnet did with Rainbow.
This is 79. We're hovering around 79 right now.
Yeah. But man, what a voice. I mean, if you're going to replace Ronnie James Dio, you could do a lot worse than Graham Bonnet, right?
No, and Graham Bonnet, I don't really know his before Rainbow. What was it? Because it can go and go and go.
Yeah. Pre-Rainbow, I'm not sure. I know some post-Rainbow. I know he did Alcatraz, and I know he did Michael Schenker Group. But pre-Rainbow, I'm not really sure.
I don't see anything.
Yeah. Don't know. But so they did the one album, Down to Earth, with Graham Bonnet, which produced a couple of hits, and then Rainbow picks up Jolyn Turner.
Hold on a second. Did you know Bonnet was almost in the band Sweet?
No.
Yeah, in 79 he was Brian Connolly was not going to be in Sweet. And they called Graham Bonnet.
Ooh, I don't know if that would work.
Well, I think it would. I think the Sweet has some super heavy moments.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. I mean, Sweet F.A. is a heavy metal song.
Yeah.
That's a heavy metal song. So
yeah.
I think he would have worked. Anyway, yeah, Blackmore got him instead.
Yeah.
But he's more of like an R&B singer, believe it or not. And you know what? So is Dio. They're bluesy. They're really bluesy, and they're both tenors. They're bluesy guys.
Yeah.
Dio being American, of course, and Graham being English.
Yeah.
Interesting that they are similar in a lot of ways. So
yeah.
Since You've Been Gone and All Night Long were those hits. I have both of those songs on a Castle Donington Monsters of Rock at Donington Park album.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, with Graham singing.
Awesome.
And a side note, there was a band on that same bill, I believe, called Grand Prix with Robin McCauley on lead vocals.
Yeah.
Who
sang for
joined MSG.
Yeah.
To replace Graham Bonnet.
Yeah. Wow.
So all these guys were on stage together in the 70s, in the 80s, playing on each other's records, playing with the dudes from UFO and the Scorpions and Black Sabbath. Yeah. All day long. All night long, I should say.
Well played.
Okay. Yeah. So where are we going now? Because this...
Well, we probably need to mention Jolyn Turner.
Yeah, exactly.
He has a foot in.
I mean, shouldn't we before we go Jolyn, shouldn't we talk about Graham Bonnet? Is leaving Rainbow, bringing in Jolyn Turner, but where does Graham go?
I think that's when it was an Alcatraz his next step.
he started Alcatraz.
Yeah.
He got Yngwie.
Yngwie Malmsteen. Yeah.
Yngwie was coming out of, that was early. So
Yeah.
Yngwie was doing Rising Force stuff, I think.
No, I
Not
think.
yet. Not yet. Okay. So Yngwie did Steeler and then Steeler. So Yngwie's new to America.
Yeah.
Mike Varney. You know that name? Mike Varney.
Metal Blade, Music for Nations or Metal Blade Records?
No, nope. Shrapnel.
Shrapnel. There it is. Okay.
He's a Northern California guy guitar enthusiast who was, I believe, doing write-ups in Guitar Player magazine, Guitar World magazine, something like that.
Yeah.
Had a record label, put out these records called U.S. Metal, where he was searching the globe for these unsung guitar players.
Yeah.
Dial up Marty Friedman, dial up Yngwie Malmsteen, dial up Tony McAlpine, dial up all day long. This guy's got contacts to guitar players globally and has outfitted pretty much all of the bands other than MSG and Rainbow and, you know.
Yeah.
Joey Tofola's another one. All day long, he found all these.
David Chastain.
Correct. Yeah. So he's outfitted roundabout by some avenue. All of the bands that we love that are all now on the Deep Purple tree somehow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so, all right. So Graham gets Yngwie, does Alcatraz, does an MSG record, and can pretty much do whatever he wants to it. Did you know that Don Van Staveren from San Antonio, Slayer, of course, Riot, and is a lifer himself, who's one of us because he's from South Texas. Did you know that he's on the new Alcatraz record?
I did know that. He's on about half of it. Yeah.
So hold on a second. Did we just put our buddy
Don Van Staveren?
Donnie
is on the Deep Purple family tree.
That's messed up, yo.
I think we should text him and let him know because he may not be aware of that, but he just landed on the Deep Purple family tree.
He wasn't even trying to.
Yeah.
So,
these guys weren't trying to.
Steve, well, here, this is a little bit of a stretch here, but Steve Vai was in Alcatraz. Steve Vai was in David Lee Roth. Well, he wasn't in David Lee Roth, but he was in David Lee Roth's solo band.
Yeah, he was in Whitesnake.
He was in Whitesnake all day long. Steve Vai's on the tree
with David Coverdale. Yeah.
Which puts David Lee Roth on the tree, and it puts Billy Sheehan on the tree. Okay.
This tree. I hope this tree doesn't fall because it's going to take out an entire city if it does.
No, hold on. Are you kidding? This tree is almost made of metal. It's made of hard rock. It's made of hard rock and metal.
Exactly.
And
it's not
Jared sent me a little message. It's like the DP spectrum. It's like the deep purple. Like it makes me want to say rainbow. So spectrum kind of works like a color scheme,
like a prism.
Prism. Yeah. So the deep purple spectrum is this prism, of all the colors, rainbow colors.
Yeah.
To just let it be what it's trying to be.
Yeah.
Of everything that has become hard rock and heavy metal.
Yeah.
And all of everything that is hard rock and heavy metal, and even don't leave out R&B, blues, even psychedelic and prog rock and all that kind of stuff all day long, because Steve Morse from the Dixie Dregs is in Deep Purple.
Yeah.
And he was in a band, Dixie Dregs. What's the drummer for Winger? Rod Morgenstein, the drummer for Winger. Did I just put Winger on the DP tree?
I think you did
I just put Alice Cooper on the DP tree.
because of Morgenstein.
Winger played bass for
Oh,
Alice.
there you go. Yeah. So I want to bring up something I think is important in this
Okay,
conversation.
let's not forget Joe Lynn Turner, because he's worthy. There was a lot of
Okay.
hits, and he was related, and he's an American singer too, which I think is kind of interesting.
Let's talk Joe Lynn Turner first, because the point I was gonna make almost brings this back full circle to Deep Purple, and I want to save that. So let's talk Joe Lynn Turner first.
Real quick, I want to tell everybody to hit like and subscribe, and to check out the links that we're going to put in the description down below in case they want to look some of this stuff up, and maybe even buy the record or just read the notes, because it's kind of important.
A lot of these albums that we're mentioning will be available through our affiliate links in the description on YouTube beneath this episode. So yeah.
How are you going to tie your new geek out to Joe?
No. My new geek out is something separate, but I don't want to forget it. So let's spend some time with Joe Lynn Turner, because
don't forget your new.
No, I won't.
Yeah.
So Joe Lynn Turner becomes the singer for Rainbow, working alongside Ritchie Blackmore, puts out 3 albums: Difficult to Cure, Straight Between the Eyes, and Bent Out of Shape. Was there anything before Difficult to Cure?
I'm looking at some notes here.
I think that's it. Anyway, so let's talk about that for a minute, because as great as Rainbow was with Dio, Joe Lynn Turner probably helped put Rainbow on the radio.
Very good, thank you. Real quick, his Rainbow, his Rainbow work. I'm trying to find for you.
I'm going with Difficult to Cure, Straight Between the Eyes, and Bent Out of Shape, and I might be missing one, but I don't think.
Yeah, because it was this is all the '80s stuff. But you're right. And '83 was Bent Out of Shape, and Rainbow technically kind of chilled in '84.
So let's think about the hits with Joe Lynn Turner. Now, we're all big Ronnie James Dio fans, and we love the work that he did with Rainbow. And they got some songs on the radio. "Man on the Silver Mountain," which is a great song. "Long Live Rock and Roll."
Those are anthems, dude. Those are huge.
Right.
And have been covered so many times.
But Ritchie
notice how we haven't even mentioned "Smoke on the Water" yet.
Yeah.
Let me just crank the elephant into the room. Come on, let's get that elephant in here.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I mean, whatever, "Smoke on the Water." We're talking, "Long Live Rock and Roll" is this giant, like, epic moment in rock and roll history.
Yeah.
And so is "Man on the The riffs are so Blackmore.
Yeah.
And so heavy metal.
I love "Man on the Silver Mountain." Such a great song.
Yeah.
But Ritchie,
and that's the world being introduced to fucking Ronnie James Dio.
Yeah, really.
That's huge. That is massive.
A big deal.
Not to dwell on Dio, but Dio had this band Elf that I believe Blackmore Elf opened for Rainbow. I believe the legend has it. And Ritchie fell in love with Dio's voice, and Blackmore formed Rainbow with Elf, and eventually just took Dio, and they got new guys.
Yeah,
so I think that's the lore.
Yeah, the first album, the first Rainbow album is I think it's just called Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow, and it's basically.
But I think it's Elf though.
It is, yeah. It's Elf with Richie Blackmore.
Right.
And then you're right. He fired everybody except Dio, and then put together the lineup that did Long
But
Live
you
Rock.
don't. Just to be clear, no one fires Dio.
No, he didn't fire Dio. He fired.
No. I'm saying that he can't be fired.
Yeah.
You don't fire Dio. Dio quits because he's on to other things.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
lucky to have Dio as your singer. If you
But-
lose Dio, you fucked up.
Yeah.
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 No
But
one fires. Even Richie Blackmore does not fire Dio.
Yeah. It. Richie's gone on record as saying, he was looking for a more commercial appeal, I guess, and he got some of that with Graham Bonnet, but he was going for even more, radio play when he hired Joe Lynn Turner, and he got it.
Oh yeah.
The hits were pretty big with Joe Lynn Turner. Stone Cold, which is one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's a great, and you know what? That has that Blackmore thing.
The guitar solo in that song is one of my favorite guitar solos ever, and it's very David Gilmour-ish in my opinion.
I agree. Let me ask you this: who is the keyboardist in Rainbow? Stone Cold. What record is that on? Do you know?
It's on Straight Between the Eyes.
Okay, good. So who's the keyboard player now? Is it still Tony Carey?
No, it's
not. Okay.
No. I don't, and it's not Don Airy either, I don't think.
Okay.
I'm drawing a blank because
You're saying Straight Between the Eyes? That's 81.
Yeah. It had Stone Cold, it had Death Alley Driver.
Yep.
And before that, Difficult to Cure had Can't Happen Here. That was a great
that's a really good song. Very, very Blackmore.
And it's a rocker. Yeah,
here's a quick track listing on Straight Between the Eyes. Stone Cold, Bring on the Night, Tight Squeeze, Tearing Out My Heart, Power, Mistreated, Rock Fever, and Eyes of Fire.
Power was another one. Yeah.
Yeah. So Bobby Rondinelli.
Yes, I loved him. Yes.
Bobby Rondinelli on drums at this point.
I love Bobby Rondinelli.
He's an American, right?
I think he's an East Coast dude.
Yeah, he's East Coast guy.
With a name like Rondinelli, that I'm putting my money on the East Coast.
Oh yeah.
I'll tell you what I loved about him. It was actually the video for Stone Cold. He's behind the kit. He's wearing a full-on black leather jacket. He had this huge head of hair, and he was just playing. And he just looked so laid back and cool, but he looked so metal. There's a part in the video where he twirls the stick, and I just thought he was the coolest dude ever.
Yeah. So here's affiliates that he was in. My notes say he was in BOC. He was actually in Quiet Riot for a hot minute. And he also played in a version of Black Sabbath.
Yeah, I want to say, here's something. I want to say that he also is an uncredited drummer, at least on some parts, on the Scorpions' Love at First Sting record.
Whoa.
I'm going way out on a limb here, but I feel like I've heard that somewhere before. And so someone listening or watching this on YouTube, leave us a comment and let me know. I feel like I've heard that somewhere.
That might be something that's uncredited here. So
that's what I'm saying.
Rainbow, his Rainbow stuff is Difficult to Cure, a live record, I think, Straight Between the Eyes.
Is he on
live Between the Eyes? What?
Is he on Bent Out of Shape? Or did they get somebody new by then?
It doesn't have that. So from 81, right, it's Difficult to Cure, Straight Between the Eyes, solo stuff, but he did a Doro album, Force Majeure.
Yeah. He's been around.
Quiet Riot in 93, Terrified. I
never even heard of it.
No one knows that. That might be. That's where it starts to get. You're going. Wait a minute.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Black Sabbath by '94, Cross Purposes. That was like Iommi's
Yeah.
extracurricular Sabbath, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But he's, he,
But
as far as I know, he's still around. He plays with Axel Rudy Pell,
yeah.
which I think is a European guitar god,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
which makes a lot of sense
But
because,
we anyway, Joe Lynn Turner, an integral
okay, yeah,
part of this whole conversation. They Rainbow had some major hits with Joe Lynn Turner, and then oddly enough, he went on to sing for Deep Purple at one point.
yeah, I see that in my notes here. Let's talk about like the Yngwie records. He did like 3 of them, I think.
Oh, Joe Lynn, yeah. I don't know
Joe
how.
Lynn Turner sang on 3 Yngwie Malmsteen records. Now, the first one that he did is called Odyssey. It's not
Okay.
the biggest Yngwie record, right? In my book, The Rising Force, the first, marching out, that stuff is, it's in my brain right now,
Yeah.
tattooed on my soul. So Odyssey, um, I want to say the basic tracks, drums and bass and keys and basic guitar stuff was recorded at Arlen in Austin, Texas, 1988.
Ah, really?
Yes.
Didn't know that.
And the band was Joe Lynn Turner was not on the scene, so to speak, because vocals come later, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But Anders and Jens, don't know the bass player on that record. I don't have it in my notes here. And Yngwie were all in Austin in 1988 when this show's not about me, but it's a memory that I have, which is a really awesome memory that I will expose here.
Yeah.
When Dangerous Toys was basically the freaking house band at the back room here in Austin. When you
Right.
think about 88, 87, and 88. That record Odyssey came out in 88. So in early 88, maybe late 87, early 88, somewhere around there, Yngwie's band is in Austin. They're staying at these like home suite hotel room suites, like giant hotel room suites. It's not there anymore on the corner of I-35 and Ben White.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is right down the road from where the old back room was.
Right down the road from where I'm sitting right now.
That's right. So here you go. So those guys were coming into the back room every night getting their drink on.
Yeah.
So in 85, Watchtower, we opened for Yngwie
Wow.
at the Austin City Coliseum. And I had met those dudes, right?
Yeah.
In 87, yeah, it was in 87 in early, yeah, I was still in Watchtower, but I was also doing toys,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I was moonlighting, right?
Right.
So during that, while those guys were here, they would get, Anders would get on stage at the back room with the toys and play covers with us on Mark's drum kit.
Oh, wow.
Mark would just stand there and drink a beer while Anders would play.
Yep. Sorry. I'm going to have to interrupt you here. So, did you just land yourself on the Deep Purple family tree?
I'm out. Get these headphones.
Show's over.
I'm out. I wasn't trying to do that, but holy Christ on the cross.
Jason just died and went to heaven.
Holy Christ on the Deep Purple tree. Anyway, yeah, but that's just way too crazy. I don't claim that because nothing's ever been recorded or anything.
I just had to claim it.
Nice try, Dave.
Yeah.
So yeah, those guys were hanging out in Austin, and we were there hanging out with them and stuff. And I remember having a conversation with Yngwie about who's singing on this thing. And Yngwie's going, Joe Lynn Turner. I'm going, he's not heavy enough for you.
Yeah.
Because, I like the Rising Force stuff. who's the singer on there? It's
Jeff
escaping.
Scott Soto.
Yeah, Jeff Scott Soto. Sorry about that. I'm a huge fan, and his name escaped me. I've got a picture of me and Jeff Scott Soto like 3 feet from my hand, from when we opened for. Anyway, so I'm telling Yngwie Malmsteen right to his face, well, you need to get Jeff back.
Yeah.
He's like, oh man, this is going to be good, and I'm kind of going for something different. And I'm like, that's fair. It was the most civilized conversation that I had with Yngwie at that point, because Yngwie's he's got some piss and vinegar in him sometimes.
Sure.
He's got his own views on stuff.
Yeah.
He stayed on me in this conversation about how Joe Lynn Turner is going to help his band, and I'm like, okay, I'm not getting into any kind of argument or pissing match with Yngwie Malmsteen. But I'm gonna tell him, dude, I love Jeff. This is gonna be a hard sell for me, and I'm a fan. He's going, no, it's gonna be good. And I'm like, all right. And in the back of my mind, I'm going, you're just happy because he played with Blackmore.
I was just gonna say, it's almost as if he was emulating the path that Blackmore took when Blackmore was looking for a more commercial singer to land on the radio.
Bingo.
And now here's Yngwie with the opportunity to get the very guy that got Blackmore.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Someone said, it's like someone said, B7, and Yngwie jumped up and went, bingo.
Yeah. Exactly.
You get Joe Lynn Turner to sing on your records.
Yeah.
Bingo. Okay, so Joe Lynn Turner does 3 records. I just wanted to bring that up. And Jens and Anders actually came to a Watchtower rehearsal. I wanted to throw that little Bogart in there as well.
Watchtower.
And they watched Watchtower rehearse. just crazy to even think of. And Jens is in the current version of Rainbow right now.
Rainbow or Deep Purple?
See, you're freaking me out.
Well,
no, seriously. Yeah, so, Jens is with Blackmore right now in Rainbow. Rainbow.
Even though Rainbow is still happening, right?
Yeah, it says 2015 to the present.
Okay. That's
yeah. And this is, I'm confessing, this is wiki here. It says members: Blackmore, Jens Johansson, David Keith, Bob Nouveau, and Ronnie Romero. Okay. I don't even know most of those people, but I know who Jens and Blackmore are.
Yeah.
They both made records with Bingo, Joe Lynn Turner.
Yeah.
Is the whole point here. Right.
So
okay, so go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I don't want to change the subject until you're ready, because I don't want to detour your Joe Lynn Turner stuff.
Let's geek out on Tommy Bolin.
Oh.
So
wow. Okay.
Tommy Bolin is in Deep Purple when Coverdale and Glenn Hughes are in Deep Purple, I think.
That sounds right.
For a moment. Yeah. Tommy Bolin, this is when Rainbow was happening.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. So Blackmore goes and does Rainbow, and these guys are like, what are we going to do? Well, Tommy Bolin is from Colorado.
Is he?
Born in Colorado.
Wow.
Boulder. Plays in a band called Zephyr, which had a dude that ended up being in the Graham Parsons Project or something.
Okay.
And went on after that to play with Carole King or something.
Wow.
Drummer or a keyboard player or something. Anyway. Yeah. Huge. I just put Carole King on the Deep Purple tree. Anyway, so this band Zephyr was supposedly a big deal. Tommy Bolin. So he gets the call somehow through avenues, right?
Right.
So he's now in Deep Purple. Oh, Tommy Bolin was also before that. I think he played with the James Gang.
Yes, I was just going to say. I think
Okay.
he
What do
was
you
in.
know about that?
I know he was affiliated with the James Gang, and I want to say it was one of those hot minute things. I don't
Okay.
think I don't know how long he was in the band, or even if he
A
recorded.
year. A year.
Yeah, but he's
73,
definitely
74. Yeah.
he's associated with the James Gang, but I don't know if he recorded with them or did any albums.
Do you know how old he was when he died?
Tommy Bolin.
Yeah.
Tommy Bolin. I'm gonna guess in his 30s.
25 fucking years old.
Wow.
I
See,
don't know how. I don't know how, but that is ridiculous. You're a child. He's
yeah,
still
yeah.
that's
So
crazy.
wait, so wait
Should
a
I
minute.
say
Wait,
should I say
wait.
child in time?
So wait. Why not?
Yeah.
So wait a minute. He played in Deep Purple and was dead by the time he was 25.
Crazy, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So in 76, I'm not sure what year he died, but probably 76, I think. 76,
No idea.
77. Yeah.
Okay.
Because here we go. More weight on the tree. More fruit on the tree.
Yeah.
First Moxie record. Tommy Bolin solos all over it. That's
Yes.
76.
Okay.
So could it be that Tommy Bolin, an ex-member of Deep Purple, who played solos on the first Moxie record, who died that was in 76. Did I just put Moxie on the tree? I did.
If you did, then I
Okay.
think you just put Mike Reno on the tree.
Lover Boy singer is on the tree.
Okay.
Whoa.
Okay. Let's bring it back to Deep
Okay.
Purple. Let's bring it back to the core of Deep Purple.
Yes,
the
please.
The point that I wanted to make, or something that I didn't want to overlook, was Deep Purple obviously went through a lot of incarnations and a lot of people coming and going and whatnot.
This is still, hold your thought for a second. Is Ian Pace the only original member right now in Deep Purple, the current lineup of Deep Purple?
If I had to bet money, I would say yes. I'm not familiar with the first couple of Deep Purple records, but assuming he was the drummer when Rod Evans was the singer, then I would say yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Speaking of Ian Pace and where I was going with this, let's circle back to 1984. Deep Purple has gone into many different directions, and they reunite and put out the Perfect Strangers album.
Holy shit, what a kick-ass album.
What an album, dude. Wasn't that a great record?
So there's a lot of bands that have their early stuff, and whether they charted or whether they had hits, whether they had the X factor that would put you on the radio without losing your original fans, but garnering new because of the web you are building.
Yeah.
The mass takeover you are in working towards.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, they got the right management, they wrote the right song.
Yeah.
Is our buddy Martin Birch hanging out with all these guys?
Dude, you're reading my mind.
Yeah. So hold on a second. Let's talk about Perfect Strangers. I mean, dude, is Woman from Tokyo on that record?
No, that album has.
What is that? What album is that?
It's
Tokyo.
It's one of the Gillan records. It's either In Rock, Machine Head. It's one of the classic Deep Purple. It's so classic I can't remember it. But
but you know what? That song, Woman from Tokyo, could have been on Perfect Stranger. That's how sort of like seamless Perfect Strangers was.
That's the beauty of Perfect Strangers. It sounded like it could have come out in 1974 or something like that.
Yeah.
And the singles off Perfect Strangers was the title track, Perfect Strangers, and here's the one, Knocking at Your Back Door.
Yes.
What a great song. Great song. And they were back in a big way with that album. They kind of went away and turned into different, different players and whatever. But they came roaring back with that album, and the tour was successful. The album was successful. By then, it's 1984, so MTV is in full swing. They were gaining a whole new generation of fans who had heard of Deep Purple but had no experience with them except, Smoke on the Water. And here's here's Deep Purple with the classic lineup and a brand new album and just a huge breath of fresh air. And
Well,
it was a great album.
Two hits is amazing.
Yeah, sure.
For and what year is that? Jesus, 84. Yeah, you're right. So hold on a second. I want to find, just because it's bugging the crap out of me, and I don't mind doing it right here.
Looking up Woman from Tokyo.
Yeah, Woman from Tokyo, because they had that Come Taste the Band.
That's Coverdale, I think.
You're right.
Woman from Tokyo is going to be on.
It's older than that.
It's good. Yeah, it's with Ian Gillan.
I can't believe that. That's crazy to me.
Gillan sings that song, so it's either
I know
it's either In Rock or Machine Head or
no, because Coverdale's Burn. Isn't it?
Yeah, that's Coverdale too.
Yeah, Coverdale's Burn. God, what a song that is.
Have
you just listened to the drums before on that? On Burn?
Yeah.
Listen to what Ian Pace is playing on that song.
Yeah.
It's sick.
Yeah.
Well, Smoke on the Water's on Machine Head, so Woman from Tokyo's after that.
So is it Fireball?
Yeah. 71? That's just crazy.
Is that it?
No, wait, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, man. No. Woman from Tokyo's not on that.
Well, it's definitely sung by Ian Gillan, so it's somewhere in that period with Gillan on vocals.
Well, someone tell me, because I'm not going to look it up.
Yeah, somebody leave it in the comments. It's got to be In Rock, Machine Head, Fireball, or...
Yeah, I missed it in my little search, and it's not...
So here's the last...
Not the end of the world right now. We got plenty of shit to go over.
Here's the last thing I wanted to bring up,
okay.
and you touched on it already. I was going to say, here we go again. The common denominator in this whole conversation is a guy who's not even a musician, and that is Martin Birch. And Martin Birch is so fantastic. We did a whole episode on him earlier in the Talk Louder history.
We could say that earlier this season.
Yeah, earlier this season, yeah. Martin Birch, the producer. So we've talked today about Martin got his... For all intents and purposes, he got his name on the radar. Let's just say it like that. He probably did some things earlier, but he really started gaining prominence during the time that he spent working with Deep Purple. So Martin Birch, producer, engineer, makes his name starting with Deep Purple. Did albums with Whitesnake, Rainbow, Black Sabbath, all of the bands that we're talking about. What am I forgetting here? Am I forgetting anything? I mean, that right there covers the big bands that we've mentioned in this show.
Yeah, I mean, you want to go ahead and turn. Wait, did he do Rainbow? Hold on, he did Deep Purple, Rainbow, Black Sabbath,
Whitesnake.
There's 4. That's 4.
Yeah. That's pretty impressive.
Big 4 of Martin Birch.
Yeah.
Now, you could say Big 5 with Maiden.
Yeah, Iron Maiden is probably where he's, well, we'll save that for another show. Well, we already did that show. But, yes, talking about Deep Purple and the topic we're discussing today, Martin produced all the classic Deep Purple records, or else he engineered them. He produced the Rainbow Rising record. He produced Slide It In by Whitesnake. He produced Heaven and Hell and the Mob Rules by Black Sabbath. I mean, that guy right there, all the bands that we've been talking about today, he was in the control room when they recorded.
So here's like basically a list of greatest hits that I'm sure Martin had almost everything to do with. At the top of this episode, I mentioned Hush and Kentucky Woman, which were both singles in 1968. The first record had Hush on it. That's the first record. That's Rod Evans, right?
Yep.
Kentucky Woman is also that's the Neil Diamond song. That's 1968.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, it's like, is Beatlemania still going? At this point, you see what I'm saying? Okay, hold on a second. So this is just a rundown. I just want to read. I'm looking this up. Just I'm being fair. I'm not gonna act like I know these songs. Okay, Smoke on the Water, Highway Star, Child in Time,
Great
Black
songs.
Knight, Space Truckin', Woman from Tokyo, Soldier of Fortune, Knocking at Your Back Door, Demon's Eye, Perfect Strangers, Sometimes I Feel Like Screaming. That's a 90s thing. Speed King, I think that's a Coverdale.
It's an early.
Burn is Coverdale. Lazy.
Yeah. Lazy.
Who's Lazy? That was a big song. Oh, it's on Machine Head.
Yeah,
So that's Gillan.
Yeah.
Mistreated. When a Blind Man Cries, that's Machine Head again. Something called Help, that's on the first record. And Pictures of Home, that's Machine Head. Arguably, Machine Head might be their biggest moment.
Well, it's got Smoke on the Water, so there you go. That's
Dude,
just
Smoke on the Water is from 1971.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Smoke on the Water is their Stairway to Heaven. It's their signature tune.
So Smoke on the Water is right in there with like probably on the radio the same year that like Sabbath Paranoid came out.
Yeah, close.
Pretty
It's
sure.
in that. Yeah.
Yeah, really close. The first Alice Cooper, well, technically the third, but Love It to Death.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah.
No Kiss yet. There's no Kiss. Queen is still working on it.
Right. Yeah, these guys have been around. I mean, for decades and decades. Like I said at the top of the show, you wouldn't have heavy metal if not for Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, and Black Sabbath. And I'll admit I'm more knowledgeable about Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath. They're more of my go-to, but I won't for a minute sit here and deny the greatness and the influence of Deep Purple. I mean, they're every bit as important as Zeppelin and Black Sabbath when it comes to the foundation of heavy metal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that when you think about, what more, just elaborating on what you've said, the more I think about Deep Purple, I think that there would be no Black Sabbath. I think there would be no Yngwie Malmsteen. I think there would be no. I don't know how else to say it. I'm getting. It's kind of an emotional moment to think about the sort of genesis. I mean, they're like the. How does the wizard find? Where does the wizard get his first crystal ball?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like it's the chicken or the egg, right? So where does the crystal ball come from?
I've always considered Zeppelin, Purple, and Sabbath to be contemporaries because they all debuted right around the same time. They all brought something different to the table. Deep Purple bringing sort of that neoclassical thing,
Yeah.
Sabbath bringing the drop tuning and the real sludgy sort of demonic sort of thing, and then Zeppelin being kind of a little more all over the map. But when they wanted to get heavy, uh, they, I mean, communication breakdown. Tell me that's not metal, you know? And
Oh yeah.
I've always
Oh yeah.
considered those three bands to be sort of the founding fathers of what of what heavy metal became. You know, there's people that are going to argue that you can go back to the Kinks and you can go back to the MC5 and stuff like that, uh, and Blue Cheer, and that's all fair. That's fine. But I think by the time Zeppelin and Purple and Sabbath came around, they were they were contemporaries of each other, and because they were coming up at the same time, a movement was sort of built around them, or a scene or a vibe was sort of created because there was three bands doing it at the same time, and they were unintentionally sort of growing this thing that they didn't realize was going to be called heavy metal because it didn't have a name yet. But because there was three of them sort of doing it at the same time, it was hard not to notice.
Well, and before you go off on, which is probably going to happen at some point, because I don't really think we've done a proper episode yet on the new wave of British heavy metal. So you're thinking about Purple and Sabbath and Zeppelin, and you know,
Yeah,
the bands that became what is now known as the new wave of British heavy metal in the late 70s and early 80s. Late 70s. This was 10 years. This is looking at, roughly between 7 and 10 years prior to what someone would call the new wave of British heavy metal. Well,
yeah,
this is what they've got it. This is where they got it. When
yeah,
you think about there's like every third chapter in Rob Halford's book, Confess, which I know you got for your birthday. I can't wait to compare notes.
yeah.
Um, Rob's talking about Led Zeppelin. He's talking about, the first time he heard that stuff.
Yep. Yep.
And he's talking about Black Sabbath. Of course, those were his buddies, right?
Same neighborhood.
Yep. And he's talking about Purple. He's talking about Gillan. He's talking, and this is like every third chapter, there's a mention of something. There's a mention of Ozzy. There's a mention of Iommi. There's a mention of Zeppelin. There's a couple of run-ins. It's not a spoiler, but there's a couple of run-ins with Page in the book.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really have a chance to properly fanboy out on Page. It's cool how he's confessing. See what I did there?
Yeah.
To what we're talking about, the genesis, and/or as I'm going to go back, step back into the crystal ball thing. It's like, well, someone has to. Who makes the crystal ball? Is that sent down on a cloud from angels, or to look into, to create what it is that became Deep Purple and became Rainbow and became who is the genesis of this? Who started Deep Purple is John Lord.
Yeah.
John Lord started this. Did you know, going all the way back to 68, John Lord was in a band called the Flower Pot Men?
Oh,
Which
man.
is terrible.
Yeah.
There was going to be a super group thing called Roundabout,
okay.
where members would be all these badass sort of Blue Man Group badasses, and they switch instruments and musicians and stuff.
Yeah.
This is going to be with someone named, I'm paraphrasing a little bit. There was this guy named Art Wood, whose brother is Ron Wood from Face's Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
That John Lord was going to be in this group with.
Wow.
Pretty trippy. I just put the Faces and and Rolling Stones on the tree. I think I did. So when they
Yeah.
were putting together this super group, they had Blackmore and John Lord, and they're looking for a singer. And you know who came and tried out? I just mentioned faces. Rod Stewart.
Ah, nice.
Rod Stewart.
See,
Almost.
see.
Just put just put Maggie May on the. If you
Oh,
want my body and you think I'm sexy, come on, baby, let me know. And that's on the tree, man.
well, I think if we peel back the layers anymore, I'm gonna find out that I'm on the Deep Purple tree.
Do you know what they like the band, they like the name Deep Purple, but you know what was a close second for a band name,
No.
which wouldn't have worked at all. Concrete God, which
Oh,
is
yeah,
really cool. That's really cool imagery there, but
yeah,
it doesn't do the it's not vague enough, right? It's not
yeah. It's very specific. That
yeah,
that name brings to mind something more modern, like uh, all black leather and spikes, and it brings to mind a band that Deep Purple would have influenced. You know what I mean? A
yeah,
generation.
Concrete God sounds like something maybe Spinal Tap would have written.
Isn't that a? Wasn't that an offshoot of that band, The Darkness, when they broke up? Didn't
It
they have
could
a
have
band?
been. It could have been. I don't know if that name. I can't say the name Concrete God was ever used, but
Maybe they were called the Stone Gods or something like that. But
okay. Anyway, I'm glad that they
yeah,
stuck with Deep
I mean,
Purple.
like I said, I think if we continue, I'm going to find out that I was once a roadie for Deep Purple,
Right.
which would be fine. I could put myself on the Deep Purple tree. But yeah, I just feel like I'm glad you really wanted to do this show. You've been kind of pushing this one for a while, and I think it really just goes to show, the whole purpose here was to sort of make people aware of how many times the common denominator is Deep Purple, because it's really pretty impressive when you think about all the bands and musicians that we talked about today and how they're all connected in some way to Deep Purple. And I'm sure there's names we left out, and I'm hoping that our
Oh,
listeners,
there is. It goes on and on. It's so
yeah.
ridiculous, and
So
it also. I want to get emotional here for a second. I want to say this. You're already sort of connecting everybody to everybody else.
yeah,
Hard rock and heavy metal fans, we're connected.
yeah,
There,
yeah.
we know we see each other coming a mile away.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And if we don't, I don't think that you are as invested into it as some of us are.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's yeah, exactly. That's a great point. We're sitting here we're sitting here making a point about how far-reaching uh, the Deep Purple family tree is, but if you take it a step farther and you talk about the heavy metal family tree, we're all part of it. Everybody listening to the show, you and I, our producer Jared. I mean, everybody that ever geeked out and saved their allowance for a Kiss cassette or joined the Kiss Army or whatever. And you're right, we could spot each other a mile away. And so
If your favorite guitar player is Tony Iommi,
we can be friends.
you're well, I like that. That sounds like a t-shirt. But if your favorite guitar player is I don't know,
Richie Blackmore.
John Sykes, you're
Yeah.
connected to the family, you're connected to the Deep Purple tree. You know how you want to connect John Sykes to the Purple tree?
Well, John Sykes was in Whitesnake.
What else was he? What else do? Who else did he play with?
He played with Thin Lizzy, and he played with the Tigers of Pantang.
I love all this.
He played with Blue Murder,
Yeah.
uh,
Guess who was the drummer in Blue Murder?
Carmine Apiece,
Who was the bass player in Blue Murder?
Tony Franklin.
Tony Franklin was in a band with Paul Rogers, The
Jimmy
Firm.
Page. Yep.
Yeah, who was the drummer?
Chris Slade.
AC/DC.
Yep.
On the Purple Tree. Okay, John Sykes. You said Carmine Appice.
Carmine
his
goes by
brother,
Appice. Vinny
Vinny Appice, played on Mob Rules.
Yep. That's right. And he played on the Dio solo records.
Well, yeah, but I went further back.
Yeah.
He played Mob Rules. Right.
Yeah.
So there's Tony Iommi standing right next to Carmine, standing next to Tony Franklin and Jimmy Page and Paul Rogers from Bad Company and Free.
Yeah.
You see what I just did? I just like threw in I just do a bomb into the room.
Yeah, and somehow you could find a thread that leads back one way or another to
this is the reason I wanted to do the show, because it's really a mangled web that no one can really understand.
Yeah.
But if they did, if they just went through their record collection and found out who each person really is,
yeah,
instead of just go, I don't like that song and move on, like my attention span is dead, and they admit that their attention span is dead, you're off the hook.
Yeah.
But if you're a serious nerd about your record collection and songs you like, and it has anything to do with heavy metal or hard rock, trust me, trust this 2-hour-long episode that it's dedicated to the idea that some way, somehow, there is a thread all the leading back to the Deep Purple spectrum.
Yeah. I think you could do this with any band and it would go so far, but I'm hard pressed to think of another band where the branches are so far reaching. And like I said, I don't even think we captured everybody involved, but we did our best in a 2-hour episode. I hope you guys ordered a pizza and made a cup of coffee.
I have one more for you, and I apologize. I know we're trying to get out of here a little bit. We're not running for the door, but what did the world do before Deep Purple?
Well, if you were looking for heavy music, you were listening to Cream and Vanilla Fudge and Jimi Hendrix and stuff like that. So yeah, it was out there.
Vanilla Fudge?
Carmine Appice.
Oh,
yeah.
Trapeze. What do you think of when you think of trapeze?
Well, based on today's episode, I think of Glenn Hughes, and I think of Dave Holland from Judas Priest. Yeah.
See what I mean? So this is just prior to Deep Purple. So there's those could be seeds, right?
Yeah. And then what we're talking about started blossoming.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I really love the episode, Dave, and I'm glad that you came around. I feel like I had to pull a little bit of teeth.
Yeah, I'll admit it was a little daunting because, like I said earlier, I'm much more knowledgeable about Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath when it comes to the three bands that I consider the founding fathers of heavy metal. Shame on me for not being a little more well versed in Deep Purple. I know all the obvious stuff, but I don't know the granular details like I do with Black Sabbath or Led Zeppelin.
I'm guilty of the same. It's not something that I want you or I to be completely bummed about, because earlier in this episode, which was, let's see, 2 hours ago,
yesterday,
we mentioned that, disclaimers, that we're not the biggest Deep Purple archivists in the room. So anyone who wants to chime in and correct us, we welcome that. Subscribe and hit like and comment and tell us how dumb we are about Deep Purple, all you want, because that's what this show is all about.
Yeah, exactly. And, we could say that about every episode, to be perfectly honest.
How dumb we are?
Yeah. Well,
Wayne's World, Beavis and Butthead, and That Metal Show all rolled into one.
Yeah, I mean, we do this show for the fun of it and for the conversation, but we've never claimed to be the be all end all authority on everything we talk about. So we're going to miss some things. We're going to get some facts wrong, and we don't mind being corrected one bit. So please join the conversation and do so, and let us know what you think about Deep Purple and whoever we covered or missed today on this episode. Because I'm really eager to hear who we might have missed because I feel like we talked about a lot of people, but that is the deep purple family tree is huge. So no way we're going to catch them all, but we tried and it was fun. So with that,
I think we did good.
let's move on to our shot of rock and roll. Jason, my shot of rock and roll for you today. This is coming from a listener or a viewer actually on YouTube. Somebody left a comment. I want to say it's Leon Greiner. I hope I'm saying that right. He goes by Danny on YouTube and Leon on one of our other platforms. The guy needs to go by one name so I can get him straight, but he knows who he is. Anyway, he said he wanted to know if we remember the very first rock and roll 8-track tape you ever had as a kid. Do you remember 8-track tapes?
My first car had an 8-track player in it.
Oh, nice.
A little silver Subaru that was a hand-me-down car, belonged to one of my older brothers. It had an 8-track player in it, so I was all about it. I mean, I grew up on vinyl. This is pre-cassette world I'm living in, like 16, 17 years old, driving this Subaru, which was probably a late 70s model. And I don't remember my first 8-track that I bought, but I do remember a lot of things about the 8-tracks because I accumulated quite a few of them. I had this General Electric portable 8-track player.
Yeah.
It was like a little boombox, about as big as a lunchbox.
I remember.
And it was black and gray. I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
And you would punch the tapes into the side jack of it.
Yep.
And it would record. It had a radio built into it. So at the time, I thought it was a super cool program. And I think it was put on by Westwood One, which is a broadcasting company, I believe. They did a show called the King Biscuit Flower Hour.
Yes.
And the King Biscuit Flower Hour would have anyone who was on tour that they could pull up their remote recording studio, which is basically a studio inside of a truck,
right?
And back it up to the venue and run audio snakes in and tap into the board, and they would record it and mix it.
Yeah.
And the Toys got to do one for Westwood One in '89 and ended up being the first 7 or 8 songs on a live album that we put out. Anyway, I would record on this 8-track portable 8-track player. I would record the King Biscuit Flower Hour stuff or just whatever, and I could listen to them in the car.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had my favorite tape that I had made. I think I tried to record my Kiss records and just so I could listen to them, from vinyl. I tried to, because I had some of my stereos they weren't components. They were like an all-in-one with a record player on top with an 8-track player in there with a record button, and you could record your vinyl onto 8-track. And anyway, but my favorite one, I had Saxon and UFO from the King Biscuit Flower Hour from the same show. They were on the same show back to back.
Wow.
That was my favorite 8-track that I recorded off King Biscuit that I would listen to in my silver Subaru.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yep.
I'll mention my first 8-track. I remember my dad was into music. He was into country music, and his sister, my aunt, thought she was going to, for his birthday, she brought him an 8-track tape that he thought he would enjoy, and it was Jim Croce. And I think that
Nice.
she saw Jim Croce on TV and saw an acoustic guitar, and she assumed he's country. My dad will like it, so she brought him a greatest hits 8-track, Jim Croce's greatest hits. And my dad got it, and for my dad, it was a little too folky and hippie. It wasn't country because it's not, you know.
No, it's not twangy at all.
Right. But she didn't know. She thought, you know, acoustic guitar, guy sitting on a bar stool, it's country, right?
Right.
So,
I mean, John Denver is only country because
he says,
right. Thank God I'm a country boy.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
telling you that he's country, but he's almost writing these poppy, folky, hippie,
Right.
happy love songs. You know, Sunshine on My Shoulder, and
yeah,
he's writing like the credits are rolling in a movie in the 70s, and you hear
Yeah.
Sunshine on My Shoulder. Yeah, that's not really country either.
so
That's not your sister's fault at all.
no, it was my aunt's fault.
Oh,
Not her fault, but my aunt
Not-
bought the 8-track, gave it to my dad for a birthday present, Christmas present or something, thinking it was something he would like. He felt it was a little too hippie, not quite his thing, because he was into George Jones and Merle Haggard, and Jim Croce is not those guys at all. But I heard it and I thought, this is cool, man. I really liked it. I liked it a lot. So I sort of inherited it. My dad wasn't going to listen to it, so I listened to it all the time. But the first one that I remember owning that I chose myself, the first 8-track, was Leonard Skinner's Street Survivors. And I think I mentioned this in a previous episode. At the time that I got it, it was the cover with the band members surrounded by flames. And of course, after the plane crash, they pulled that cover and replaced it with just the same shot of the band members, but minus the flames. So I wish I still had the 8-track just for collectible, you know, for the sake of collectability. But anyway, my 8-track recollection is first Jim Croce. That was kind of a hand-me-down from my dad. And then my first was Street Survivors by Leonard Skinner.
Very, very cool.
So there you go.
Very cool. It wasn't a great medium because, unfortunately, if the songs were lengthy, you know, the song would fade out, and then you would hear this, like, you know, big clunk, you know, and it would same song would fade back in where around where it left off, and they had to do that because there was only like a few minutes per channel, the way that the tape would flip or something inside the player.
Yeah.
And it's not, yeah, that's terrible. You're rocking out to your friend. I want to party ever, you know, you're just like, what? The party's over for, you know, those few seconds? That's not good.
Real quick on the subject of 8-tracks, do you know who has a car to this day and is super proud of the car? Is like an old, I'm going to say it's an early 70s family-sized station wagon with wood grain panels that run down the side. This thing is straight out of the Partridge Family, and it has 8-track tape player in the dashboard, and he is proud of it. And you know who I'm talking about?
I don't.
Tracy Guns.
That is awesome.
If you follow him on Instagram or whatever, every once in a while he posts a photo and he'll have like Kiss Love Gun or Aerosmith Rocks, and it's always on 8-track, and he's putting it into his car stereo, and he drives this big lead sled beast around town with his 8-track blasting, and he loves his 8-track.
Gas guzzling 8-track listening to Tracy Guns.
Totally. I think that's awesome.
I love that dude even more now.
Yeah, right. Just when you thought you couldn't, just when you thought you couldn't love Tracy anymore, there you.
Well, apparently he and I think have the same birthday, and no, that's not true. It's Jizzy Pearl that I think he and I have the same birthday.
Oh, okay.
Pretty sure. But
yeah.
Tracy is on the Deep Purple spectrum via Phil Lewis.
Via Phil Lewis, via Bernie Torme, via Ian Gillan.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, did I get that right?
And he was in that Contraband group with Michael Schenker and the guy from Shark Island and
Bobby Blotzer and the girl
Sharon from Vixen. Yeah. So they're all on the tree too.
I actually saw that band live in San Antonio.
Oh, cool.
All right, before I end up on the Deep Purple family tree, not that it would be a bad thing, but if we keep peeling back the layers, I'm going to find out I was once a roadie or something like that. But this has been fun, man. This was a good one. The Deep Purple family tree and the reaches just goes on and on and on forever. So we'll call it quits on this one. And again, if you have any Deep Purple stories or mentions or people we forgot, please leave us a message and leave us a comment or whatever. If you're interested in any of the albums that we mentioned today, take a look in our affiliate links in the bottom of the YouTube description. We'll offer up a few things where you can go shop for some of the albums that were mentioned today. In the meantime, I'm Metal Dave Glessner. This is my co-host, Jason McMaster. We invite you to visit the Talk Louder podcast for your swag and merch.
TalkLouderPodcast.com, TalkLouderPodcast.com.
TalkLouderPodcast.com. And on that note, we will see you next time. Thanks for listening.